with the right people at the helm and the right stories, like you'll find an audience, right? Because we're not a monolith. And I think very often people think in niche or these buckets. And I'm like, no, like I think you can tell a very universal story that is relatable just through empathy and emotion.
Today, we're joined by Deniese Davis, an accomplished producer known for her work on HBO's Emmy-nominated Insecure, a Black Lady sketch show, and most recently, One of Them Days. Deniese, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Ariana. It's so good to see you.
It's so good to see you. You're my first guest.
Oh, the stakes are high.
The stakes are high. So we thought we'd kick things off with showing like a fun clip from a Black Lady sketch show.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Black girl magic for real.
Right?
I know.
Well, good morning. God is good?
All the time.
Amen.
It's
such a
so
classic.
good.
It's such a classic.
It's so good.
You can't help but clap.
What do you love about this moment? Like,
I mean, it's such a cultural moment, I think, just looking at the cast that played a part of this particular sketch. And I always think about like where everyone is now and where they were even at the time. But it's just special. I loved seeing, what it reminds me of is I remember seeing a lot of social media posts and different industries and places of work where it was like employees full of Black women who were like taking photos and kind of being,
I love that.
Not necessarily inspired, but I think they definitely thought of this sketch because it's such a moment. It's great.
It's so good. It's so good. We wanted to like highlight some of your work. I love that.
Thank you.
So for listeners who may not be familiar with your journey, can you share how you got started in the industry and what like kind of first drew you to producing?
Yeah. So I am originally born and raised in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's my fun fact. But I bring that up because I was obviously close to LA, but very much grew up in Vegas and didn't know anyone in Hollywood. I actually got into video production in high school in a class my sophomore year. And that kind of was my introduction into video production, I'd say. Like I learned how to edit and shoot with the camera and would come up with stories and do all these really fun videos for my school. And by the time I was a senior, I was kind of directing, producing, and editing our daily video announcements for the school. And so I didn't have context of like what I could do with this new skill set, but I found out I could go to film school for college. And to be honest, it sounded very bizarre because I didn't know anyone who went and got a degree in film. And it felt very like, is that a real degree? Everyone goes to college to be doctors or lawyers. And but, you know, look, I really wanted to go to school and I was excited to now learn more about like this thing I just kind of stumbled into. So I ended up in New York. I went to Brooklyn College. And I think because I was still newish to what I was about to set myself, the path I was about to set myself on. I remember feeling very like insecure, no pun intended, about being in this room full of all these people who may have done it for so long, which is silly because we're like 18 years old. So it's not like people were like these masters at that film, but I just felt like people might know more than me. And so I decided that my freshman year, I should better decide what I wanted to double down on. And I think because of my high school experience, I had some context to like, okay, I think this is what a director does. I understand. I did some editing, so now I see what that's like. And it was very easy to eliminate the things that I liked but didn't love. And then I came across the definition of a producer. And there was something about this idea that there was a position that encompassed almost everything. It was creative, it was personable, it was business, it was marketing, it was production. It's like all these things wrapped into one. And I also like that I didn't have to choose one lane and that a producer is a part of something from the very beginning to the very end, right? Whereas a lot of other roles come in at different stages of a project. So I read a book called So You Want to Be a Producer, and it changed my life. And I was like, yeah, I want to be a producer. So I started young. That was like my goal through undergrad, was to focus on how to make that happen and what I would do from there.
That's really admirable to have sort of started young, developed your skill, and then, I mean, years later, you see where you are. There is something to starting young.
Maybe insecurities, maybe it's the imposter syndrome that I think pops up in all of us from time to time.
Yeah.
And for me, it's always just made me kind of, really look to figure out how to move past it and what can I do to make me feel more confident in whatever choices I'm about to make. And I've now realized like, oh, that's always served me pretty well.
Yeah,
totally. It's worked itself out.
And thinking about a producer, defining a producer, what is a producer in the Hollywood sense?
Definition? Well, my definition is I liken it to like a project manager or a CEO or like a head of a company, right? Because you are managing personnel, right? I'm in charge of managing and overseeing this large crew on a set. But I'm also in charge of the execution of someone's vision and the creative process and all the things it takes to get that done. And so I don't even know what the one sentence definition would be if you Googled it. But in my opinion, it is the person who is responsible from inception to completion, to distribution, to marketing, all of the above. And it's a really special role. I think that the more you get into this business, the more you realize how invaluable it is to have a good producer, because it's kind of like I'm the coach, I'm the backbone, I'm like that person who's like, we got to get it done.
You're the person who you make it happen.
Yes, exactly. Like you find the solutions, you figure it out. How much money is this going to take? Where do we get the money? Like all the things that, it's almost like someone is just there to think of all the ways in which this can be accomplished and allow everyone to do what they're really good at, right? And to kind of bring that team together and kind of help steer them and make it happen.
I love that. Indispensable.
Yes.
Okay, so you finish school, you complete school. How do you get to Awkward Black Girl?
So when I finished at Brooklyn College, obviously I was like, I still want to be a producer. So I started looking into graduate programs here in Los Angeles. And I figured if I got in, that would be a great ticket to move here and not have to like find a job right away and just figure it out from there. And so I ended up getting into the American Film Institute, AFI, and it was a 2.5-year program. Got my MFA in producing. I was still really young, so I came straight out of undergrad. And the summer of 2012, when I was graduating, digital had kind of been exploding for the better of a year at that point. And I mean, digital in the sense of like YouTube and creators who are now making content for the YouTube in a more sophisticated manner, right? We had kind of graduated from like the Chris Crocker videos and like these fun skits and things that were like going viral to people who were, trying to figure out how to do storytelling for the web. And so I was kind of seeing that happen, and I made a conscious choice that instead of doing the traditional route, I think in our business, which is you leave school, you apply to be an assistant or to work at an agency, and you figure it out from there. And there's nothing wrong with that path, but I think I had learned this amazing skill set at AFI of like physical production and how to make stuff. And I just, it didn't sit right for me to like kind of pack all that up and put it in a closet and come back to it one day. So I made the conscious choice. I said, well, this digital is a thing. And I don't think they're calling these big name producers to come do these small, low budget projects. What if I just kind of stick my neck out and try to just do some more work and get some more set experience? And so that's what I did. And that decision led me to applying for a bunch of freelance producing jobs. And a job that I applied for was for a web series looking for a line producer, and sent my resume in, and I got an email from Issa, and we met for coffee. This is a true story. And she hired me the next day, and a week later, I jumped into the second season of Awkward Black Girl. She had already started the first few episodes of that season, and I came in and kind of helped her get it to the finish line. And it's just very serendipitous, right? Like right place, right time, right decisions. And I always joke, I'm like, I didn't know. There was nothing in that job description about what the web series was. It was just like, no, I'm applying to like 20 of these a day. And obviously that meeting changed my life. I found a really great partner in someone who was doing incredible work in the storytelling space and telling our stories. And as a producer who was trying to figure out, well, what kind of producer do I want to be? What kind of stories do I want to tell? It really really found me at that time.
It's incredible. And the fact that it's like kind of random too is like, just, like lucky.
It was meant to be.
It was truly meant to be. It's amazing. How long were you producing Awkward Black Girl? And then how did you go from that to producing like premium television at HBO? Like, what does that process look like?
We ended up doing Awkward Black Girl for probably the next 6 months, and then the web series gets released. And I spent the next 3 years both working with Issa on a lot of like low budget digital series and podcasts. Like we just were creating things for very little money, but just having a great time. And to pay the bills, I was a freelance producer in other areas. I was doing music videos and shorts and consulting for digital companies, just trying to figure out how to use my skill sets.
Yeah.
And about 3 years into that, I get a call from Issa, who had already been developing Insecure. And she kind of just said, hey, I've kind of asked HBO and my team if I can bring you on to this pilot. They're greenlighting the pilot. And I was so honored and flattered, because it would maybe been a brief conversation at some point, but I hadn't really thought about the realities of like, oh, this is going to happen, right? And so I'm always grateful, because I really do believe that Issa held the door open, and so to speak, for me to cross over and kind of move into the premium space with her, because she didn't have to do that. And I never really asked her either. It wasn't a conversation where I was expecting it, I should say. But I'm very fortunate, because I now see how hard it is to kind of move across different spaces in that way, to go from low budget digital to TV and then later movies. And so we learned a lot in making that pilot. It gets picked up. And that kind of set us on the path to producing for television for the first time. And the interesting thing about TV is that it's kind of a machine. So once you've done it once, so to speak, you kind of see how it works. And I think the thing that was, I was most probably surprised by, was that during the pilot, I recognized like, oh, the mechanics of making production or making television and what production is kind of the same in any capacity. But here I am in an environment where there's just more money, there's just more people, there's just more layers of how to get things moved through and improved in front of the camera. But outside of that, like there's a schedule, there's a budget. Like it helped demystify what it means to kind of graduate into bigger spaces, and it didn't make it as scary anymore once I got to see that.
Did you feel confident then? Were you like, oh, this is essentially the same, I got this?
When the pilot was over, yes. when we got through the 8 weeks, I did. Mainly because, in the beginning, I just didn't know what to expect. And so I think we did the pilot in 8 weeks, and it really did kind of validate, what I'm most proud of is that it really validated the work we were doing, because I remember seeing the first cut of the pilot before it went to the network and just being such in awe of what we accomplished and how the show that I was even a part of, that I was like excited to be a part of. I saw that pilot and was like, oh shit,
I know,
this is good. Not that I didn't think it was going to be good, but I always say, when you're in production, when you're shooting, like your head is down and you're just dealing with so many things that sometimes it's hard to look up and be like, so wait, are we doing the right thing? Are we making the right choices here? And I think we did. And so that was the moment where, I felt like, oh, I can do this. And when we went into season 1, there was definitely a little bit more of a pep in my step and a bravado of like, I think where my skill sets could be best applied to. In TV, I'm not a writer. So in television, there's a lot of writer producers who are kind of leading the charge. And so as a non-writing producer, as a creative producer, it's really interesting in television to have to kind of find what your lane is going to be, and kind of how my role could be of value and an asset to this team. Because I don't do the same things that they do, but respectfully, I know that they are more in charge creatively here than, let's say, if I were to be on a feature set,
Right. Can you talk me through the process of like project selection? Like, what do you decide to work on next? Like, how did a Black Lady sketch show come about? Like, what's the process?
I think in those early days, a lot of it was through our relationships and people that we wanted to work with. And, we'd get material sent to us all the time. But like Robin was someone that we knew for quite some time. And the minute she started putting together the idea for a Black Lady sketch show, I think she immediately reached out to Issa. And I remember seeing the early deck and the pitch deck that she put together for it. And so that was relatively easy. And then I think a lot of the other stuff was just we've always been in the business of wanting to work with great people, but also the people that you know, love, and want to root for, right? And I think within that, there's obviously a lot of talent that sometimes you just feel like everyone else is sleeping on. And so they have a great idea. We're like, yeah, we want to do this.
Right.
So it made it very easy. And now I think as I've graduated over those years and once I launched my company, I think the hardest question I'd asked myself was exactly that, which is, all right, Denise, now what stories do you want to tell?
Yeah.
All right, and now what do you want this brand to be separate from maybe the things I'd been doing before, and really trying to figure out how do I define my identity as a producer in this space when you're not attached to a talent brand necessarily, and kind of had to start from scratch that way.
Right. Well, tell me about Reform.
Yeah, so Reform Media Group, that is my production company. It focuses on underrepresented stories, but there's always a lean into figuring out how we can tell our stories differently. And what I mean by that is, obviously through my journey, I kind of consider myself a non-traditionalist in how I came up. And sometimes I still think of myself as an outsider looking in. And so with that perspective, I'm always interested in finding ways to do things just slightly differently and still finding success, even if it's in the way that a story looks like or what it's trying to say culturally, but also just from a business mechanics, because I think Hollywood, people don't like to break these rules, but I'm also like, there's no rules, guys. This is all tradition. You do it this way because it's the way everyone's done it. And I found that it's very exciting when you can be a little risky and not be afraid to take risk of just doing things differently. But outside of that, I think where I've identified my brand, and this was easy but also really hard, was, God, I love everything. I was like, I just love stories. I love good stories. I love stories that move me or touch me in some capacity. The only thing that I decided I won't do is horror. I cannot watch a horror film. So I was
but
like,
everyone says that's so lucrative.
I don't know. I don't know how I can be on set watching someone get killed when I'm in movie theaters with my eyes closed like this. So I would be a bad producer trying to do a horror film. But everything else is fair game. And what I found is that I try to let the story attract me, right? I try to let the world or the meaning or the themes or the characters, there's something that is in this script or that's in a person even that just really makes me want to get behind it. And a lot of times it's me asking myself, have I seen this before? If so, how is this different? What is this trying to say? And more specifically, who is this for? And then the last thing I would say is, depending on who it's coming from, I like to take the meeting and ask the questions about where this idea came from. And one of the reasons why is that I think it's how you find things that feel culturally authentic and grounded, because the person who is telling this story is connected to it in a very personal way that makes me kind of feel like they are going to help steer this creatively in a way that I want a creator to. Because if I can remove you and just put any writer on this, like sometimes I'm like, well, then you wrote something that's a little bit too generic. Right.
And are you thinking about commercial viability as part of that?
Sometimes. I mean, look, I think I've been very fortunate to be a part of projects that on surface you may not assume would be commercially viable. And time again, those projects have succeeded and succeeded beyond expectations and have found an audience. And so I try not to let that be my decision maker, because what I believe and what I found is with the right people at the helm and the right stories, like you'll find an audience, right? Because we're not a monolith. And I think very often people think in niche or these buckets. And I'm like, no, like I think you can tell a very universal story that is relatable just through empathy and emotion and through people who are connected to the story. I mean, no different than I connected to tons of stories I grew up to that culturally did not identify with, but it just shows that like the universal truth of storytelling is that connection. And so I like to have that lead me, where I think if the story has enough weight in some capacity, that the audience, it will find an audience. Because I just truly don't believe good things go missed under the radar very often. I think people watch something and they know it's good.
Okay, can you share a project that represented a significant breakthrough moment in your career? Maybe it's Awkward Black Girl, but anything else?
I'd even say more recently, One of Them Days.
Yeah.
The beauty of this film is that it has all the things that I think people tell you would never get made.
Right,
Or
right.
could succeed. And it's like, it's a first time director. It's an original comedy script. It's starring 2 Black women. It had a studio theatrical release.
Yes.
Had an amazing ensemble cast. We shot it in the jungles in LA, in the real neighborhood. And it checks all these boxes, but it also, I think, in this time that we made it in 2024, you don't think a movie like this is ever going to get made.
Right.
And so the fact that it did, and then it exceeded expectations
I
and,
was going to
and,
say,
and
it
did
also
really well.
outperformed.
I think that says a lot, right, about just kind of where we're heading. And I don't want to say it surprised me, but I think we were a part of something that we just didn't know, right?
Yeah.
And I think the first test screening was again, anytime I see like the product for the first time, you go, oh wait,
Yeah.
there's something really
something,
special
yeah.
here. And it only makes you more excited to kind of really figure out how to land the plane in the right way.
Yeah. And how was it working with, Keke Palmer is just so.
She's such a pro. She's such a pro.
Star. What was it like working with them on set?
Oh, they were so fun. I mean, the whole shoot was madness. We just had so
I
much.
can imagine.
Like just all this great cast in and out, and we're shooting in like true LA. Like we're on Crenshaw. We are in some very visible neighborhoods too, which was hilarious. But that being said, I think the cast were everyone was so fun and so came ready to like be a part of something that they can kind of just relax into. And we had so many great guest star roles who were like coming in for a day or two, just got to play.
Williams.
Yeah, Cat Williams and Gabrielle Dennis and Amin Joseph. And it was like a big family reunion almost. I think because it was a comedy too, there's so many laughs, right? I think even behind the scenes, to keep the energy up, we were always just cracking jokes and telling stories. And that I think got us through a lot of these like long nights.
Yes. And can you actually break down, because I'm curious about this, the kind of producing partnerships as part of that project?
Yeah.
Like who's responsible for what?
I mean, we were all responsible for the whole thing. But, this project was set up in 2018 through an initiative it took a long time. It was set up through an initiative that Issa and I started with Color Creative and Columbia Pictures. And the idea was to support and find 4 diverse emerging writers who had never written in the feature space for a studio. And so we brought in 4 original ideas, just straight pitches, and Sarita Singleton's idea, which became One of Them Days, was one of the 4. Okay. And we took it from pitch to outline to script, and over the years just continued to develop and put the project together. And so once it was ready to get made, about a year ago, Issa, I'd obviously left to form Reform, but because it was a Hoorae Color Creative project, I kind of came back to produce it. And as we were entering the conversations around when we were going to make it and how, Mackerel came on board as a co-financier, which was great because we've known them for years and wanted to work with them for a very long time. And then our producer group grew to 6, and we were a lean and mighty team. But I think we really did a good job trying to figure out how to best to divide and conquer, because at a studio film at that level, there's so many moving parts. And so I think having more producing support was so important, because it allowed us to really try to figure out who's going to be where and at what point. And so we like divide and conquer handling talent and talking to the studio and just taking different leads on how we were going to put out the fires as they happened and find solutions. And and then Issa is always such a great creative lead, no matter what. She's on set every day, making sure that those performances and that the script and everything was being honored. And so was Sarita. So it was truly a family affair, and how we all kind of came together and made sure this thing got across the finish line.
Amazing. And what about, maybe it could be from this project or another one, just a kind of most challenging production problem you've had to solve?
Oh, they're all so challenging. No, I mean, I'd say, first season of Rap Shit was pretty difficult, only because we were shooting in Miami for 6 months. There were times we would just be sitting at base camp in the trailers, just like wind and rain, just like, and thunder. And we were just like shut down for hours, just like, well, some point we might get back out there and film, like, just full on a different experience than what I'm used to in LA at least. So, but it was challenging, especially also with the show like that. That was the first season, and we were trying something new. I think with the visual approach, and so again, it had all the pieces of okay, how are we going to make this one work? And I think that the most challenging part was again, we also just put ourselves in a different location with not as many resources and. But we still figured it out.
I'm glad you brought up Rap Shit because that's like yet another Issa collaboration. Can you tell me a little bit about what makes a successful collaboration, creative partnership like that?
Yeah, I think one of the things that has always worked for Issa and myself is that I have no ambitions to be a writer or a talent or a creator, but I love working with people who are great visionaries like herself. Yeah. And in reverse, there are some things about producing that Issa loves, but she's also like, girl, I don't like to look at a budget. I don't want, I don't want to get into the details of some of the nitty gritty stuff where I'm like happy to roll up my sleeves. And so I think we really complement each other where we both are bringing something to the table, but also have a lot of respect and friendship there as well. And so it allows us to really talk through a lot of the problems that we face when it comes to production or creative challenges and come up with solutions that we're both in support of. And I think it's really key. I think, a successful partnership should look like a yin and a yang a little bit, right? Yeah. Like you do want to both be bringing something different to the table, but somehow still complement each other in the middle. Right. And one of the North Stars was both of us were just always so gung-ho on like telling certain stories we wanted to see told, but also working with the people we wanted to work with. And that has always served us very well.
Yeah. Well, that's something that I admire. I mean, I always hear Issa talk about it and you live it, I know. But you guys always, working with friends, kind of find your people, bringing your kind of relationships with you. Like you said, she brought you to HBO. Like, it's just something really admirable about that. Can you talk a little bit about, because I feel like you guys both have this philosophy of kind of like, let's build together.
Yeah. I mean, look, you heard a little bit about my origin story. It's like, it's so rooted in the DNA in some capacity. And for Issa too, even before I came along, so much of what she was able to do with her web series involved bringing her friends and asking for help and having people just be along for the ride. And I think there's a point where when you're doing that and you're just working with people and then you're like, oh man, they're so fun and they're so good at what they do. And like, you need to keep doing this, right? And so it's almost like a secondhand nature to want to support others. And, I think unfortunately for a long time, this industry might have gotten a bad rep where it feels like that's not always the case and it's very competitive and there can only be one and, no one's looking out for each other. And I think, maybe we're of the generation where we just came up and saw things differently because coming from the digital space where you just you figured it out, right? Because you don't have the money or the resources or the studios. It makes you kind of have this like everyone's on the same team effort, and I think it's just been instilled with us this entire time.
Yeah, it's very inspiring, I have to tell you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about financing, money, funding. So I know that you said when you were starting out on the digital side, you took other jobs to kind of support yourself. When did you when was it okay just working? Was that HBO?
Yes, I would say it was between season 1 and season 2 of Insecure. Okay. And the reason why was because obviously I was like, oh, I'm getting a check from this TV show. But Issa also got her first HBO deal. And that was the first time I was able to be like hired and put on salary with her company. And that changed so much for me because up until then I was just a freelancer who was like chasing check to check. And so now it was like, oh, wait, I have a job? But obviously like the best job in the whole wide world. Yeah. And so it allowed me to kind of find some stability and grow from there.
Yeah. And I know that philanthropic funding is not always talked about in the creative industries, but I know you were able to tap into resources like Pop Culture Collaborative. Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Yeah,
I think a lot of it was through Color Creative. So Color Creative currently exists as a management production company, but it was initially started in 2014 by Issa and myself. And it was kind of, I call it an initiative or mission-based driven company at the time where we were figuring out how to build more pipelines and and support and help these underrepresented writers and storytellers we were working with, and wanted to find new models again to kind of say we can build them outside the system and help them kind of transition over. And so with that in mind, we're talking now, wow, 11 years ago, when, you're going out to these studios and the likes, and that's not really where the funding was going to come from. They didn't really see what we were doing as of importance necessarily. They also at the time all had their own labs and programs. And so, when Pop Culture Collaborative was formed, by that point, we had already kind of done a lot of test cases with different partnerships with other production companies who would fund whatever that partnership looked like. So we did one with BET, we did one with Project Greenlight, we did one with the Sky Vision in the UK. And so when Pop Culture Collaborative came around, it was like, hey, here's what we've been doing for 4 years, but we don't have the funding to elevate it. And they really came in and saw, I think, the success that we were having, right? It wasn't no longer just on the page. It was like we were speaking to real test cases and examples of things that we found a way to bootstrap and just do. And it's something I really believe in when it comes to funding or anything, is that I think sometimes people wait for the check. And I'm always like, no, if you build it, they will come. And so my mentality is, how do you do it with whatever it is that you have at your disposal, even if it's like, I don't have a lot of money. But I do believe that if it exists, it's so much easier for people to really want to support and stand behind, because then you're already doing it, right? And it doesn't feel like I need you. Now it's like, you want to be a part of this or no? And there's just a different, I think, mind shift when it comes to presenting yourself to people who could be potentially your financial backers, because everyone wants to be a part of something that's already built to some degree, where it's a lot harder for them to take the risk if it doesn't exist.
Totally. That's such an important distinction, because I think your instinct would be, don't put anything out. I don't want it to look bad. Get the money, and then they'll be amazed.
That's what. I think that's everyone's use. But even when I think about Awkward Black Girl, Issa had her friend grab a camera, and they shot those first few episodes with zero money. And when it went viral, and she was like, "Oh wait, I got to do more episodes," she did a Kickstarter and was able to raise enough money to fund the rest of the first season. But even prior to Awkward Black Girl, she did 2 other web series for no money, right? And so Awkward Black Girl happened to be the third. But that's even a perfect example of, had she sat around and waited for someone to fund this web series, it wouldn't exist. She was like, how do I just make this? How does it exist? And then let's see what happens. And so I think in anything as an entrepreneur, I've just found that, people spend a lot of time looking for money, and it's the hardest piece to any idea. And sometimes I'm like, but what do you actually need? Maybe it's the producer in me. I'm always like, what's the bare minimum we need just for it to like be a thing? And from there, what does that look like?
So how did you store those resources? What's the smart thing to do? What did you do with them?
Well, they came in and really helped us fund at a crucial time. We were at the time we had just set up the Columbia lab with Sony, and trying to expand beyond some of these like one-off partnerships. And so their funding really allowed us to actually hire like our first executive, and we had like a creative exec now who could help us like develop and hone in on projects to produce that were outside of these initiatives, and also just establish a great rapport and relationship with the women at Pop Culture Collab that's existed till this day. They now support our Find Your People program that we launched 3 years ago, and they were one of the first funders into that. And so it really allowed access to, I think, an ongoing partnership of support as we were continuing to grow the business.
Amazing. And tell us about Find Your People.
Yeah, so Find Your People program is another type of pipeline based off of the history that the company had. But it actually started in March of 2020, week before the shutdown. We did a networking party. So we did open submissions and hand-selected and personally invited like 50 creatives, and focused on directors, cinematographers, editors, writers, producers, and production designers at the time. And we brought them in for a networking party and had all these ice-breaking games and things to bring them together, because it really was from the belief that Issa and I had, which is, often people want to try to connect with us at a certain level to, find them opportunities, et cetera. But we believe that, hey, your peers and the people who are alongside you are the ones that you should be working with and connecting with, because you guys will all grow together. You will rise together, and things will open up that way. So the Find Your People party was actually what it was called, was designed to do that. And it was such a success. And because of COVID, we didn't really get to take it to another level. Like, we wanted to try to bring these people into groups and get and give them an opportunity to maybe make a short film together. But 2020 just did not allow that. No. So we put that aside. And then a couple of years later, as we relaunched within the management company and the production company, Talitha Watkins joined the Color Creative as our president and was like, I really want to take Find Your People Party and elevate it into something more proper. And so we started designing what became the Find Your People program. And so the DNA, and again, if it exists, if you build it, it will exist. But the DNA of what we did for that party was the roots of what became this program, which is, okay, now we want to do a more formal program that allows us to select these individuals again, but this time put them through workshops and give them some resources and mentorship around their skill sets, both individually as cohorts, but also together. And then we do want to take them through a green light process and fund their shorts and help them take it all the way through the end. And we did the first cohort 2 years ago, where we just are closing applications for the third now. And it's been very successful. And I mean, I remember seeing the shorts from the first year, and I was so blown away. And I had visited set and met with all the filmmakers and the whole creative teams. But I remember being like, man, I've seen so many shorts in my lifetime, but this production value of these shorts and these stories are just like, they were so impressive. And I think it really spoke to, the nature of this program, which is designed to make these people collaborate and really get to know each other and network with each other, right?
Okay, let's talk about some practical tips and resources.
Okay, let's do it.
So what advice would you give to producers starting out? And do you feel like you need a formal degree?
I do not believe you need a formal degree. Let me start there. People ask me all the time, what do you think about film school? Look, film school really was my way in because of what I wanted to learn. But I tell people all the time, everyone's journey is your own. And you may be coming into a capacity where you can't afford it. You don't want to spend that time. But you also may be past it. And so I think it really depends on where you are in your path and whether you feel like you know what the advantages of film school might bring you. So that's first and foremost. It's not for everyone. But I think to answer your first question, if you're an up and coming producer now, my biggest advice is people often ask to shadow me, or they want to see what I do in a day. And I'm like, that's not going to help you.
I want to shadow you.
No, it's not going to help you. You're just going to see me send a lot of emails, make a lot of phone calls, take a lot of meetings, unless I'm in production. And even in production, I think shadowing someone, sometimes it's too late because I'm like, no, so much of what I do is the years of work and the months of pre-production before we even got to set, right? Once I'm on set, if I did my job well, I'm relaxing, hanging, and putting out fires as they come up. But most of my job is 80% there by the time we're rolling cameras. And so what I tell people, the best way to learn and the best way to just really get into producing is to produce. Because it is a skill set and it is a role that is a lot of different things. That you can't teach just one thing. I can teach you about budgeting, but it's not going to be the same unless you are in charge of your own budget, right? Unless you are working with the director and trying to figure out how to get them what they need, or what does it mean to hire a great DP? And so, you can ask for advice and ask all the questions for mentorship, but I think the best thing any producer can do is go find something to produce. And once you've done it once, you can do it again. And even now at my level, I'm never not learning. I'm still learning on each and every project because every project is different. The people are different. I'm well, never had this problem before. So what are we gonna do about it?
So the advice is you need to make something.
You just need to do it. You just need to do it. And I think it's the best way to learn.
And in terms of resources, just find the money. Get scrappy.
Get scrappy. Find the money. Sometimes you'd be surprised how little money you actually need. But I would always recommend people to branch out and to network. Find your peers. The best thing about this business and about storytelling is to remember that you're not doing it by yourself. Like,
Yeah.
no one does it by themselves. And if
Right.
they do it, they don't do it by themselves for very long. So at some point, I think it's imperative to find who your collaborators are, right? Who are the ones that you're going to work with.
Find your people.
Find your people. Because, by the way, that is more valuable than the money. If you find the right people, that's where you realize, like, oh, I don't need as much money. Why? Because I found this incredible person who's going to shoot my short for free with their own camera.
Yeah.
Great. Now I don't need to spend money on renting equipment or paying someone, right? And so it's the difference between needing to find the money and the resources versus like being really smart and thoughtful about how you're going to do it.
And in terms of just practical tools, you had mentioned a book.
Yes.
What was the name?
So You Want to Be a Producer.
So You Want to Be a Producer. So that sounds like...
So it's a book designed for features, but it's written by Larry Terman, who was the head of the Peter Stark producing program at USC.
Okay.
But it's such a great book 'cause it's the first thing that I read that broke down a producer in every step of a movie along the process that let me understand it. But on the other side, if you are interested in television, I always recommend a book called Small Screen, Big Picture. And it's a book that's written for writers, but that breaks down the television business. And so I think it's super useful, specifically just for that space.
Okay. Looking back on your journey so far, what are the top lessons you've learned that have been crucial to your success as a producer?
One would be to listen. I think being a good producer is really great listening skills, because again, you're a problem solver. So if I'm not hearing people, if they don't feel like they're being heard, or I'm not listening correctly, how do I figure out how to solve it? So listening is huge. The second one would be, this is so funny. I'm like, to be organized. There's just so many details. There's so many things to be in charge of. I mean, people don't even realize I'm not even talking about production and like a budget. I'm like, no, I'm talking about who to call for certain things, or like you're getting a deal done, you got to call this lawyer, and then you got to call that agent and call that man. Like you're like, you feel like you're playing whack-a-mole half the time. But within that, it's being organized to know, I think, the systems in place and how to like accomplish something, how things are supposed to work. How do you get this done, so you don't step on any toes, but also you got to get it done. And I make a list every week. Here's my to-do list for the week. Here's what I got to get done for this week. And it's a way to hold myself accountable in terms of my productivity. But it's about being organized in order to do that.
Right. And I assume you're juggling multiple projects.
Multiple projects in different states, and they're with different studios. They have different, you have to keep all that straight somewhere.
Right, definitely. And anything exciting you're working on right now with Reform or other ventures? Yes.
Last year I actually made 2 movies and a docuseries. And so one of them Days was one of those films, but the other 2 projects are Reform projects. One is an indie romance drama coming of age film that we're in the process of selling now that I'm very, very excited about. And then the other project is a docuseries that'll be streaming hopefully later this year. That's very much in the pop culture zeitgeist. So I've been really, really excited about how that's gonna do.
Okay.
But it also is technically these are the second and third projects from Reform that'll actually be out and airing. So I'm just excited to build a brand and see where I go from here.
Yes. And is Reform you on your own?
It is just me.
All right.
I am Reform.
You are Reform. Okay. So for those dreaming of stepping into producing or starting their own production company, what's the one piece of advice you'd want them to take to heart?
The one piece of advice, I would say it is to know yourself, because the company is a representation of who you are at the end of the day. And so don't try to make it something that you're disconnected from. And I think that's the best way you will have success in whatever that company looks like with the production company, whether it's the stories or the people you want to hire, the things you want to do, because you have to figure out how you're going to set yourself apart from all the other production companies. And the only way to do that is to make it inherently you and what you stand for and what you care about and the things that you're interested in, and not necessarily trying to be a copycat of someone else's company, because their makeup looks very different than yours. So that would be my advice, is to really sit down and think about what you want this company to stand for and how you want it to be represented.
Yeah. Bring your DNA to the
Bring
company.
your DNA into it, yes.
I feel like all the things you were saying, find your people, color creative. It's just, if there's the through line, and it's funny because it's your last piece of advice too. Like,
Yep.
if you build it with your kind of authentic energy, it reflects in the projects and the people and the relationships, and you've definitely done that so
Oh,
beautifully.
thank you. Well, I believe in authenticity through and through. So
Yes. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me. This is so
Awesome.
wonderful.